Africa, the world's most endowed continent, continues to be its poorest, a region unable to harness its human capital and natural resources to create wealth for its people. It's become a vast laboratory for experimentation of development concepts by foreign governments and institutions. Africa Unbound offers a unique vision and approach. The vision is of a people finally free of the internal and external shackles that bind them, and of a continent that determines and manages its own development processes. Our approach focuses on personal transformation through self-examination, personal development, and self-expression. The journey has begun. On April 28 and 29, 2011, global and grassroots leaders from across the continent met in Addis Ababa to launch a continental movement that will mobilize and support individuals who are willing to wake up and take a stand for Africa. The theme of the symposium: Moving Consciously Towards an African Enlightenment Era.
Consciously, because in the past 50 years, since many countries got independence, too much of Africa's development has been externally driven, with little involvement of everyday citizens and ideas that are locally derived. Moving, because it is about dynamism. It's about change and transformation, and what Africa needs to do to really advance in an increasingly complex and globalized world. Enlightenment, because it's about knowing and being open to learning and adapting as individuals, as citizens, as societies. Era, because the time has come, and now is the moment for Africa to take its rightful place in the global community.
The discussions focused on the distinctive feature of the Africa Unbound approach, bringing about development through the transformation of the individual.
The symposium is rightfully focused on the individual, because for real change to happen, it has to start with the self. And as our mothers and grandmothers have said many a time, it has to start at home.
The idea here is the central importance of changing attitudes, conceptions, and if you wish, it involves an inward turn, a turn away from thinking about systems, structures, to thinking about what happens in interior space in the mind. So personal transformation is held to be the key to the achievement of these fundamental aims: democracy, material progress, and universal peace.
We at the African Development Bank particularly welcome the central thesis that promotes and advances transformation from within the individual, rather than the traditional top-down, bottom-up, left-right, approach. We've gone through all those, and we know what the result is.
Who is the individual? What are the mechanics of his thinking? We know so much about the anatomy of the human body. What is the anatomy of the human mind? How does it function within political, social, and economic fields? And how can it take dominance in these areas? I believe this is what probably Africa Unbound is about.
We're interested in looking at what it is that we can do. Because again, the change needs to happen internally first. And then we do something. Once we change what we're being, and again, the being comes before the doing. There has to be some kind of an internal transformation in the way we are, in the way we live our lives, in the way we see the world, and in the way we interact. And once that transformation happens, then the doing, the action part will automatically change.
Political leadership is one of the most challenging areas where self-actualization needs to have an impact.
You look within yourself, and you don't develop yourself to isolate yourself from people. You develop yourself to work well with people and to have a moral basis for working well with people, and a moral basis for making the claim that you have the right to contribute to development within your community, within your continent, and ultimately with the rest of the world.
We can take that back to where we come from. Drive policy, drive politics, drive business. And that was very, very empowering, and that's why we thought that on our side, this is something we should join in and support, not only as individuals, but as individuals that can change our home organizations and change our countries, our societies, to be able to move in that direction. So I thought that was very empowering, that the self, we are still ourselves when we go back, but we are ourselves in a different environment, and we can use that to change in different ways. And that's why I found it very powerful, the way you put it, because it is provocative. It does push us to change differently, but it empowers us in incredible ways that we probably wouldn't have been able to previously, because we didn't put it as a conscious thing.
We as African people should understand ourselves as agents of change. In other words, we cannot look outside. And if I have to damn religion, it's on the basis that it always has us looking outside, upwards, and everywhere else. And we say it is to look inside, to the centrality of African ideals and values, the highest forms of African culture, which may be no more present in rural Africa. So we have to make sure that we're not just in the cities in these nice rooms and so on. This is where we're going to have to go. And we're activating consciousness.
We examine the goal of the Africa Unbound movement to establish peace, prosperity, and freedom through enlightened individuals.
Many people cannot embrace the idea of peace because peace seems to be abstract. Peace is not the quiet of the graveyard. Peace is a practice. It is the identification and free expression of your innate potential.
The freedom to think, experiment, express, and learn are the key underpinnings to a developed state. This freedom to create and express is also the key element to what we call innovative capacity. And it's what has historically been the main ingredient to successful change processes across the world.
I think the responsibility of freedom is to make other people free. If anybody has their own personal freedom as an end within itself, that person doesn't understand the internal freedom that this conference is calling us to. It is calling us to a sense of responsibility, a nurtureship.
Freedom to do what one wants is not freedom. Freedom to do what one must do, what one has to do. This is freedom.
Our approach resonated with the leaders of the key development institutions on our continent and won their support.
It comes at a time when, the existing paradigms about development and poverty reduction are coming under greater scrutiny. And the quest for innovation and non-traditional approaches is gaining momentum. It is no surprise to anyone around this room, this issue of aid effectiveness, development effectiveness, the end of the Washington Consensus. We are all grasping for new, innovative, workable ideas. And I think this notion of an Africa Unbound could not have come at a better time.
I think the environment is right. Really, I feel a lot of optimism in this continent at all levels, So that environment, that positive can-do attitude is already there. Now we want to maximize this. Let Africa Unbound help us do that, to say that this environment is right and that this is the time to jump. This is not, because if you do not jump, we will die like the frog, and I hope that will not happen. So this is what I expect from Africa Unbound.
Individuals liberating themselves by taking responsibility and unleashing their inherent potential for achieving new heights is indeed an African value. It's African in value, it's African in culture, and it's African in its economic dispensation.
ECA is proud to be associated with the movement.
We're creating a collective consciousness, identifying our shared values, and recognizing our common identity.
The notion of creating collective consciousness about the self-imposed and externally imposed barriers and shackles and what have you that continue to hinder Africa's growth and development. Ponder, if you will. Ponder, if you will, the notion of engaging in a crucial process of consciously creating our own reality, our own space, and setting our own tempo. Ponder these issues, because it's only when you think them through over and over that you begin to grasp where this thing is going.
It is important to have a base, commonly shared values and norms, a core of issues that can pull a people together. And for me, what the ambassador said about having humanism, the human person, the sense of freedom, dignity, and respect as a core, whether it is enshrined in a constitution, whether it is enshrined in religious values and norms. The critical thing is that there is a core. Once there is that common base, and there is a sense of fairness, that we are working towards something in which we can all gain something out of it, then the possibility of building a movement that can move us forward is therefore very strong.
This is the beginning of something big. The quiet revolution that's being unleashed by Africa Unbound has the potential to transform the African continent. But this transformation of individuals, when aggregated to a regional and African transformation, becomes a transformation like no other, where the whole, i.e. the transformation of Africa, becomes bigger than the sum of the parts. And Africa transformed becomes more than just 800 million people transformed. Collectively, the whole, aggregated at the regional level, becomes greater than the sum of the individual parts. And I think this, again, is a strength that we need to celebrate and build on.
I think something happened here which is quite unique, that goes beyond the launching of the digital website in 2008. And it's this something that our brother couldn't put a word to, but it's that foreseeing the future, sensing it, and the optimism that Africa can generate and create and be.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Africa Unbound. Thank you very much, ECA. Thank you for this conference. It's as though the planet is brought to a standstill to deliberate on alternate ways to move the whole planet forward so we can really have true peace and development.
Africa Unbound. The case is strong. The time is now. Let's seize the moment and move it forward. Thank you very much.
Fueled by the passion and determination of each of us to create an Africa that is unbound, the movement continues to build momentum. Africa is awakening. The tide is turning.